Okay, Mama, how are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see all your faces. It's great to be here with you all. And tonight, oh look, we have another edition.
Kevin,
hi.
it's Kevin likes to come to GodTalk, so
Oh my
Yay.
heavens.
Okay, you might have to add him on your little name,
okay.
or at least when we go around for introductions.
Yeah.
Right, so this is God Talk, and we are talking tonight about self-care. And we're going to start, like always, with going around with our just say the name that you want to be called by, your pronouns, and the answer to our icebreaker question, which tonight is I want to know something that you do for a friend to show that you care. So I'm Carol, she, her, and I guess my favorite thing to do for a friend is to like take them out to eat, because then I'm involved too and we get to spend time together, and hopefully it makes us both feel good. So that's my favorite thing. How about you?
Sorry, but I take a mega guy.
No, we know you were out of town. So, but let's just say your name and your pronouns.
Okay, I am back. Okay, you back. I am back. I get you back. Oh, you.
He said, I'm Marco or King Marco, and your pronouns,
You.
he, him. And what is something you like to do for a friend?
Go eat. We kicking game.
Oh, like when we went swimming?
Yeah.
But that's, what did you do for a friend? Like, what did you do for Lisa that took you? Did you say thank you? Did you give her a hug?
I get
Yeah, that's a good thing to do for a friend.
Hugs are really good.
How about Kreger next?
Gregor.
I'm Kreger, and my pronouns are he and they. And what I do for friends to show that I care is that I pray for them. I pray with them. I pray about them. And KT has heard some of my prayers on the 12 o'clock group. And so I love to pray for my friends and for the people.
Beautiful. How about Suzette? You want to go next? And then you
Okay.
can choose the next person.
I'm Suzette, she, her, and this is Kevin, he, him. Let's see, my favorite thing, or the thing that I do that I make a point to do to my friends, is tell them whenever I see them, when I see them before I leave, I tell them I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you. It doesn't matter. I think we maybe as a society maybe don't say it enough. My family never said it to each other, and I was the one in my family who started saying it. But I truly want people to know that they are loved. And so that's my mission in life, is to say I love you. I love y'all.
Dad, I thought you had to go to the airport right now and pick
Oh,
up.
my cousin canceled. She canceled. She said Texas weather was too moody. So here I am.
Corinna?
Corinna, or KT, just the initials, K.T. She, her. I like to send cards or notes
Oh, nice.
when I find someone, it's like for a birthday, but sometimes I just want to say, if I haven't told you, I think I'm old school, and I like putting pen to paper and saying something that's my words. So I like to send notes and say, you're a blessing to me, and the world is blessed because you're here.
That's beautiful. Lynn?
I'm Lynn, and she, her. And what I have taken to doing is something that a classmate of mine started a couple of years back doing to me. She sends encouraging words, memes and just have a nice day, good morning, maybe with a scripture attached. And so we haven't physically seen each other in a couple of years, but I hear from her every day. She sends a meme of some kind. Well, most every day. And so I started doing it for other friends. So I like to, and sometimes someone will say, a friend will say, well, I'm going through this, or, this really bothered me the other day. Or someone, they'll lose a family member or something like that. So I send text messages that have encouraging words.
Nice. I wonder if we lost Reverend Bona.
She looks like she's still connected.
What is the question?
I was just going to tell you. The question, the icebreaker is what is something nice you like to do to show a friend that you care?
Well, that depends. Sometimes I'll just get, if something reminds me of somebody, I'll buy them a little gift or so. I usually call them up on the phone, usually. So it really depends on the person and the situation. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, tonight we're talking about self-care. So let's just start with saying, what does self-care mean to you? Is it a spa day?
I am the worst when it comes to self-care. As you can see, I don't like get up and like put a bunch of makeup on to come sit at my desk. That's a 5-minute commute or a 5-second commute from my bedroom. I think it's one of the hardest things about being self-employed and working from home is that you don't do enough self-care. I'm sorry, Christy's driving by. It's I'm really invested in my work, and I have a hard time disconnecting from it. So I think the biggest self-care that I can do for myself is to make time every day to stop and breathe. So I usually about 12 o'clock, between 12 and 1, like most people will go to lunch, they'll take a lunch break. I purposely leave my desk and eat something. And, if the baby's here, I'll play with the baby, or I'll go get them, I'll just do something that takes me away from my desk, because I will sit here like I was talking to you earlier. I got to go take a meloxicam because my back hurts from sitting here for 12 hours. Make me get up. That's self-care.
That's it. That's a good definition. Do you think that how is self-love related to self-care? I think that's part of what makes this a good topic for Pride Month. Loving ourselves and caring for ourselves. How is it the same or different? How is it related?
Well, if you're asking me, I think self-love defines self-care a lot of the time. I am a person that grew up in a household where we weren't allowed to be selfish or have needs or wants, So my dad was kind of that person that was like, kids are seen and not heard. And so I grew up not really knowing how to love myself and not knowing how to have a voice and not knowing, all of those things that, what do I need in life? I mean, it took me, how many bad relationships before I realized that, oh, I have an opinion, So I think self-love is so vital for us to learn as people and learn it as young as possible, because it determines a lot about your trajectory in life. I didn't have that self-confidence, and I still really force myself to do things for myself. Oh, like other people, I'm gonna go get my hair done and my nails done, I'm gonna go get new clothes, I'm gonna go do this for myself.
Ah,
That's not me. I'm happy when you're happy. That's how I am. Somebody else talk.
well,
But
go ahead.
from my perspective, I think that self-love and self-care takes a while for everybody, but particularly in our group, in our community. Because we face so many barriers, from well, when I'm feeling that I'm gay, am I okay? And it is it me or is it somebody else? So there's just a whole lot of, I think, internal barriers that we have to overcome. And for me, being Black, being a woman, being in the South, I was always the shortest one in the class, so I'm always at the front of the line. I wasn't born in Texas, so I came to the South with a northern accent, and I got teased about that. So this whole thing about self-love and self-care, you got to get self-love first, and then you can start to think about, taking care of yourself. The phrase being comfortable in your own skin, I don't think any person really gets to that right away. And in our community, it probably takes us even longer to get to that. And I think that you have to have self-love first, but you got to figure out how to do that. You may not have somebody to help you do that. You may have to do it all by yourself. And then you get to, oh, okay, well, I'm okay. And you're okay too. And so now I can take some time for me. So at 70 plus, I can tell you, looking back, my teenage years, in my 20s, in my 30s, and it probably took me to, late 30s, early 40s before I knew that I could love myself and just be who I am. And so, if you're talking about 35, almost 40 years, then you get to self-care, because you got to get self-love first, I think. So they do go together. And I think once you get self-love, then, you do what you have to take care of yourself. I retired 2 years ago, and for 47 years, I'm 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, on somebody's job. Okay, not always the same job, but on somebody's job. And when I retired, the first thing I thought is I'm going to sleep late, and I'm going to watch television when I want to, and I'm going to go shop. And I didn't do any of that. It took me, a good 6 months to not wake up at the same time every morning, like I had to be somewhere at 8 o'clock. So I think after self-love, and that's just kind of a career example, but after self-love, I think you learn what you need. Because if you don't learn the self-care, learn to give yourself that care that you need, and you have all kinds of medical problems and have, emotional problems. And so I think they go hand in hand. And I think it takes, especially people in our community, a long time to get to self-love. And then when you get to self-love, then you can kind of figure out self.
I think that's really true. And I think I think it's curious how sometimes when we're down on ourselves the most, how we tend to, some of us at least, get like self-destructive. I know when I was the hardest on myself, that's when I would like even after I'd quit smoking, I would go back and I would go out and start, grab bum a cigarette from somebody or something like that. Just do
Right.
something, negative.
Right.
And so I think I think you're right about how it takes some of the wisdom that comes with age, I think, to overcome that. But I think it's hard to overcome it by ourselves. And I think the theme in the sermons this month has been what's it called? Pride meets tribe, or pride.
Right. Pride meets tribe.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. When I heard it Sunday,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
So I think just being part of a community like our faith community, like our church, and just even some of the smaller groups where we can do things that are very supportive and things, that just seems very helpful in terms
Yeah.
of
And even that can be difficult.
overcoming.
I mean, I joined MCC in about 2014, maybe 12, along in there. But I was raised in a Southern Baptist family. And so even my faith, I had to get to a certain place to even accept myself as worthy of Christ's love. So, when you're talking about self-love and then self-care, I mean, I had to talk about self-love and get to self-love first. And I think our community faces that all the time. I mean, yeah. And so from even our faith, how we look, how we are, how we dress. I mean, out in the other world, not our communities. That's all of those are hurdles and barriers that I think takes a while to overcome. At least it took me a while. Maybe some people are bold, and the younger generation certainly seems willing to be out and proud. And I remember, when I was in the straight world, it was like unheard of. I wasn't in the closet because I had my, from 8 to 5, I was received as a straight person, but my life was, work and life were just separate. Let me just say that. And that was it was like living in two worlds. And then, pride came and we keep plugging and kept plugging and plugging. And so now it's totally different. But I was afraid to be out on my job. I was, just wasn't going to do that. I didn't tell anybody that I didn't have to. So
there were things. Luckily, things have changed, but there's still lots of barriers, and some of us still carry those internal barriers. About so many things, whether it's whether it's our sexuality or something else.
Right.
It's just, we tend to be really hard on ourselves. And I loved on this subject, just what you're saying about that. I don't know if everybody caught the last couple of sermons, but like the one about that Reverend Denise did about the fast car song. That just, you really made me think about that when you were saying that, because she was saying, that she was talking about, she said that all the words to the song, which I'm not going to try to recreate, but it starts out just being like, I want something better in life. I want
Right.
something better. We want to go. And then it talks about finding that place.
Right.
I found where I belong. I found where I belong. And I think that's all about it. And she brought it back to the biblical basis for some of that, which was going to be what I wanted to talk about next is kind of why do we as people of faith or people in this community, what is it about our faith that teaches us about self-love and self-care? And one of those things she talked about in that sermon, like how many of us have been just mistaught that God doesn't want us around, that God is separate from us. And she talked about that verse in Romans where I am certain that neither death nor life,
Right. So
God
separate
does
me from
not,
the love of God. Yeah.
God does not separate God's self
Right.
from us.
Exactly.
God does not tell us we're separate and wants us to be together. So I think that's a really important basis for why we should work on, or why we are entitled to know that we are lovable and worthy, and then we can go from there into taking care of ourselves.
Right. Right. Yeah, for me, it started with, recognizing and accepting that I am a child of God. The Genesis tells us that God created the earth and everything is good. That means I'm good too.
It is good. It is good. Yes.
You will never meet another human being who is not made in the image of God. And once you accept that, I think about yourself, then it helps. At least it helped me. Because I came from this Christian Baptist church, and of course, homosexuality frowned upon, but once I read the scriptures for myself, and my gosh, first Sunday I walked into MCC all those years ago, it was just like, wow, it was such a relief. It was like, here are people who are like me, and God is here too. And I can practice my faith being my full whole self. And that, that is what is so beautiful about MCC, and what happens there on Sundays. So,
I
Yes.
think the icing on the cake though is if you find a partner who will do that with you. I think for the longest time I didn't make that a rule in my relationships, was that they had to be the same with faith, because that was taking me off the path of where I wanted to be. So my last attempt at wanting to have a relationship, I made that a rule for myself, that that person had to have the same faith beliefs that I did. And man, it has changed my life. The church has changed my life. The foundational culture of this church has changed my life. The people, the love and acceptance and warmth and community has changed my life. I've never been in a better place before than now.
you're absolutely right about that. My wife and I were married at MCC in 2015, and before we married, well, we had a ceremony. A marriage wasn't legal then, but we had our wedding there in the chapel. And before, I'm going to tell you our love story. I'll be quick, I promise. But 3 years before, I realized that I was making the wrong choices in a mate. And so I said that I'm going to sit down, and I asked God to send me the one who would love me like I love them. And so for 2.5, pretty close to 3 years, all I did was go to work, go to church, come home, go to work, go to church, come home. I didn't socialize, I didn't do anything. And I spent more time reading the scriptures and praying. And Francis called me after 32 years. We knew each other 32 years before. We had no contact whatsoever. And out of the blue, 32 years later, she called me on the phone.
Oh, nice.
And I saw that as an answer from God. And a year later, we got engaged, and a year after that, we got married. So you're absolutely right.
Well, you mentioned like prayer and those kind of, and reading the Bible. Would you consider those part of self-care?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I at that point I was at the end of my rope. No relationship had worked out, and I wondered if I was meant to be with someone, or was I going to be alone all my life. I had one long-term relationship, actually lasted 20 years, but we broke up. And I said, my gosh, if you could be with somebody for 20 years and break up, then there must be something wrong with this, But Francis and I are equally yoked, and she grew up in the same kind of environment and family that I did, Southern Baptist. And so, I mean, it just, and the whole idea of us knowing each other in college, and 32 years, no contact, no nothing. I mean, I just saw that as God's answer to my life. I knew, gay marriage wasn't legal then, but I said, will you marry me? And she said yes. And so
That's nice.
Yeah, I see.
It's really
that
good to find that one. But self-care, I think, I don't know, we have to kind of put ourselves first sometimes. And Suzette started out talking about things like shopping and things like that, and I mentioned like a spa day, and you're talking much more seriously about like prayer and but so there's got to be lots of things in between. Let's hear from some of y'all that haven't said much yet. What are some things that you think about in terms of self-care?
Okay, so for me, one of the things that's in my routine in terms of self-care is exercise, because my mother passed away of a heart attack when she was only 62, and that was in 2001, so about 23 or 24 years ago. So and it took me a good while after that to quit smoking and quit some of the negative behaviors that I was doing. And it becomes kind of a paradigm shift. Instead of thinking, well, let's see, maybe I should wake up tomorrow because something good might happen. And the paradigm shift is, well, maybe I should wake up tomorrow because I might do something good tomorrow.
Like that.
And so you start having little paradigm shifts like that, and you start to change. But then a few months ago, my older brother passed from cardio issues. And so for example, so far today, I walked for 5.9 or 6 miles really, and I rode the bike for 7 miles. So I'm just trying to keep my heart going. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to keep it pumping. And because I've been anxious about this ever since my mom died. And so for me, self-care is doing that time and getting those walkings. And it's really hot. I mean, the heat index today is 107, 110. And so it's a huge commitment. But that's one of the things that self-care means to me is, you know, do I want, you know, in order for me to do the things, to keep playing drums at church and to keep praying with KT and the people at noon, I have to take care of myself if I want to do that, or I've got to keep my heart going. That's my logic.
Do you walk alone, or you walk out like around the track, or?
I walk everywhere, Lynn. I live in a condo, and there's the condo is one big circle, and so you know, two big circles around the condo is about 15 minutes. So I start with that at like 4:30, 4:45 in the morning because it's cool outside.
Right.
And every time I take a little break from work, I get up and I move. Get up and I move around the circle, and maybe a couple of times. And so I'm committed to that. But also I would say that one of the things that's helped me over the course of my life is that my employer that I've been with for 30 years, it was Prudential and now it's Aetna. But from day one, back in 1993, we had stuff like same-sex domestic partner benefits. And so with my organization, I've always felt valued and respected and that my opinion counted. And so that work community has been a huge part of me doing self-care as well, because I want to show up and go to work and do a good job. I'm like Suzette, you know, make me leave this desk because I'll be on at 4:30 in the morning, and I might do my last email at 5:30 or 6 at night. So, but you know,
you've always
get up and I move in between all that, you know.
You've always had community.
Say what?
That's a really good example. I find it, you know, and I think movement is just moving your body is incredibly important. And I don't know, I find you're more forward thinking. You're like, this is gonna help me in the long run. This is gonna heal my heart. But I'm just I don't know. I have trouble sometimes being that forward thinking, and I have to think kind of more in the moment. And if I don't find some enjoyment in the kind, like I like my favorite thing to do now, the thing that is the biggest kind of exercise I get is water aerobics. And we have a community pool where they play lots of great music. And so I don't know if the movement isn't in some way kind of like dancing or something like that, then I'm like, forget it. That's not worth my time. So.
Well, for me too, the walking or the cycling, a lot of times I prepare, you know, the music that we're doing on Sunday. I'll listen to that, but sometimes it's just a meditative state. I'm trying to be out there with God, and I'm like, God, I can feel you breathing me in. Help me get up this hill. I'm in the hill country now, and I gotta get up this hill, and my heart's gonna be going like 130 or 140 beats by the time I climb this hill. But God help me get there, you know. So it can be, you know, meditative, but you know, I don't want to sound like a lot of reasons why I do this too is to counteract the negative behaviors that I still have. You know, like I'll still go sit at happy hour on Friday after work and sip cocktail. You know, so you've got to balance things, you know, as best that you can. And I think that's a part of the whole self-care.
Now, wait a minute. Why is that? Why are you
yeah.
that in the negative point of view? Isn't that part of self-care too? Going to
I
have
was
a
gonna ask
cocktail on
the same.
Friday night.
I was gonna ask the
I mean,
same
you can ask
question.
my-
Is that self-care Friday? Sip a cocktail, that's self-care too.
I absolutely love going, you know, I go at 4 o'clock on Friday and I stay till about 5:15, sometimes maybe 5:30. And it's kind of like I walk in the door, it's like, Norm, you know, it's like, cheers.
You found your
It's
people.
it's another community. It's another community of, you know, all these Friday after work people are in there. Yeah, you know. And so you've got like instant community.
Well, I'm going to go back to with some things that Suzette said too about just taking breaks. And one of the things that I connected when I started thinking about self-care is just like Sabbath and Sabbath rest. And I think the whole term has been a little bit narrowly defined, and I want to talk about that a little bit as we're talking about the why. Why do we do self-care? Why do we love ourselves? What we know about the divine? What does that teach us about why we should take care of ourselves? And I think the Sabbath you know, when I was growing up, when I just heard the word Sabbath, I just thought, oh, those are those, Jewish rules that, what does that even mean? Or, people tend to interpret it like, oh, well, you should go to church. And I remember we always had the blue laws when I was growing up too. Y'all remember those? Where like you could buy a turkey, but you couldn't buy a pan to cook it in. And just silly little things like that, or they seem silly to me. But
They were silly.
I just I just think the Sabbath could mean so much more than that. And the lectionary verse this week had to do with the Sabbath, with Jesus getting in trouble for healing on the Sabbath, and the disciples gleaning some grain, which I learned wasn't really technically against the rules. It's okay to glean. It's okay to eat when you're hungry. And anyway, I think that there's a much nicer way, a much more, I think there was just so much more to that than what I thought there was growing up. I read one book about that commandment, about keeping the Sabbath, by a guy named Walter Brueggemann, who's a brilliant theologian. And he talked about how that's one of the things that set the Jewish people apart. And I never really thought about it like that. And he was like, God said, keep the Sabbath and remember that I brought you, to remember that I brought you out of slavery. And I never connected that. I never understood what that was. But it's like, if you're in a profit-minded society, if you're in capitalism, or in like the Jews were enslaved, then it's all about profit, work, and you don't take a day off. People, if that's all you're about is the profit, then you're never going to take a break. And so the Sabbath, taking a day off a week, was a huge break from that mindset of we have to work all the time, and that's our bottom goal, is to work. Suzette,
I was wondering how someone like Mona, who's responsible for pastoral care, who's responsible for, taking care of our congregants. She's there every Sunday. I work with the church as well. Part of me is there to support the church services every week. And there's some Sundays where I just say, I'm gonna stay home and watch from my chair because I need self-care. So if I don't go to church on a Sunday, it's because I'm tired and I need self-care. But Mona, how do you get self-care? Because you're in a position of, that's part of who you are, is caring for others. So do you allow yourself time to care for yourself? How do you get time to care for yourself? Do you need time to care for yourself?
Yeah, you need time. Everybody needs time.
But I mean, do you need it and want it and don't have it?
Yes, and yes. That is a learned thing that you do when you're in ministry. Unlike today, the commitment, what I'm seeing is the commitments is not of the same commitment as in the past ages. Because when in the past, when you were committed to your ministry, it was go, 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 go. Today, ministry looks different in that people, it's more like a time clock. Okay, I'm doing ministry from 8 to 5, and after that, it's my life. Is what I'm seeing now. And so the commitment has changed over time. But for myself, that was something that was learned because even as a deacon at Resurrection Decatur, you know, I kept going and going and going and going. But you have to remember during that time, you know, we had the AIDS crisis, and we were losing, we lost 80% of our congregation at that time. We were dealing with racial inequality, and we were fighting for our rights, and we had the first March on Washington. There was a lot of things that were happening in the 70s. So that drive was go, 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 be present. And there were many nights that I drove home exhausted, just on automatic, many, many, many times. I used to say that my hobby was my job and my job was my hobby, because I spent more times my hobby, which was church, than I did at my job. And so my hobby became my job and my job became my hobby. But you have to learn to say no. And so finally, I learned to say no. And in fact, now I may say no too often, because I've felt the burnout, and I know what it is to be there, and I don't want to be there again. So what do? Well, when I was working a full-time job and doing ministry, I would take a day off. I'd take a mental health day off, and I'd become a tourist in the city. And I would do touristy things that a tourist would usually do on their day on. Go to the Arboretum, go do something, go to the battleship, go to the Centennial Monument, go to Gallows, something touristy to see. I would also have lunch with people. I would call people up and see if they would have lunch, and I would, because I had all the time in the world, because I was off that day, since I was a tourist. So I could make time for people that were important to me. And even though they were on an 8 to 5 and they only had an hour lunch, still, that was still something that I did for me. I like movies, so I watch a lot of movies and TV. And so that rejuvenates me a lot, because I'm a very visual person. And then I have my pets. I love my pets. And so there's always unconditional love there. And so as I posted the other day, when an animal wants to come and lay upon me, I don't complain. I do. And I love that unconditional love that they give. And so, but yeah, it's a process that you have to learn, because burnout is real. It's there, but it's a learned thing. And yes, I still do need it. And yes, on those days, on Sundays, when Sundays are not, when you want to stay home, a lot of times it's the people who feed me some of their experiences, some of their strength is what fills my cup back up.
Reverend Moore, you talked about saying no. Did you have a period where you, as you began to say no, where you felt guilty about that?
Of course. At first, when you start learning to say no, it's like, in a way, you're saying no to your spiritual connection. You're saying no to God, and so therefore you second guess. Now, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? So yeah, you have to work through that in that process of it. But even God rested.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the Sabbath thing too. I mean, on the seventh day God rested, and that's how a lot of people have thought about the Sabbath. But I think, and more than just taking a break or saying no, maybe what what Jesus was saying when he said the Sabbath was made for humans, maybe that's part of what it is. I mean, God said, you need to do things for yourself, and I don't think that necessarily means. I mean, we definitely need breaks, for sure. But it's also a positive thing about what can I do to support life. If the Sabbath is made for humans, it's made for life, for freedom. It's made to celebrate, to have fun, to fill ourselves back up, to find something that restores us. And y'all have
And of
said,
course, when you schedule a day off to be a tourist, you plan in advance, particularly if you're working. So you schedule in your calendar, this day I'm going to be a tourist. And so you plan it. So you, just like you schedule date nights, you schedule your time off so that you can look forward to. For me, as a tourist, I get to look forward to being a tourist. I get to plan, okay, what are the city you haven't seen? Where are things that you want to go and do? And so it's a planned excursion into it to revitalize yourself. And you can say, hey, I go home, and even now, when I have lunch with the retirees or with a retired individual, I'll just say, this was a good day.
Wow.
This was a good day.
I was just about to ask, what would happen if we treated every day as the Sabbath? And instead, because we tend to wait, say, okay, I'm going to take vacation in the summer. Or I'm going to, well, yeah, Sunday, I'm going to get up and go to church, and I'm going to spend the rest of my day just for myself. So what could we build in some self-love and some self-care every day? Because we're thinking, well, every day is the Sabbath. I mean, every day we wake up is a blessing. So
That is
what
true.
is
And every
Sunday
day
about?
I do wake up, and the first thing I do is give gratitude for the day that I did wake up. But retirement is very hard for me because I retired in 2015, and I've been working odd jobs. So I think now it's been an entire year now that I've been retired this month. So it's not an easy thing for me. And I just applied for a job today, just to see, because I'm that generation where we are workers. And so retirement is not fun for me because I don't have a hobby, and I don't desire to have a hobby at this point. And I don't cook, I don't sew, I don't any of that. What I do is serve, and I serve very well. And so retirement is not easy for me. So because I think somewhere I'm still capable, I'm still physically capable to do something. So I should be doing something, and I'm not. So it's been very hard to get used to. And whether or not I do this job or not, that's far from. All I did was throw my hat in the ring, and we'll see what happens. And if it's there, it's there. And if it's not, it's not. And we'll just go on from that. But the mindset is still there. Oh, you need to work. You need to work. You need to work. You need to work.
That is hard to
So,
get out of. Well, we need to have a purpose. We need to, yeah.
so
Right.
the
Yeah.
body may not be willing, but the mind is. So we'll see we'll see where it lands.
Corinna, where has this discussion taken your thoughts?
Oh gosh. It is still hard. I think one of the things I think even when I'm working with clients, I have a respect for how hard it is to really unlearn stuff, unlearn not taking care of yourself, unlearn believing everything that someone else says about you. You know, and so even at 76, I still, on if the conditions are right, then I can still not be as lovable as I need for myself. And then I have to stop because I know now, I know when I'm not being lovable. I know when I'm making choices that are not kind to me. But the pattern is so old that it just that happens. And I think giving grace and forgiving myself for not for that little I was 35 years old when my mother said for the last time, "You are the most unlovable person on this planet." And my father, who had killed himself due to his alcoholism, she said, "And you're going to end up just like your father." Now, I heard that. I heard the unlovable from time I had I was cogent. I mean, it's like by the 5 or 6 or 7, I knew that statement. And then dad died when I was 15. And then, so another 15, 20 years, I heard that prophecy. So it's here. And I think it makes me, I mean, I'm pretty proud of growth and things that I have been able to accomplish. But I have to be, I think, what is the word? It's like there can be a bacteria or an infection, and it's like I don't, a haunting if the conditions are just right, and then I hear, "I am too lovable," coming that childlike voice that I never said to her. It's like, okay, and then I think, oh my heavens, is God going to be upset with me because I can do this whirlwind? So I think understanding that shame has such a powerful control. Shame is one of the most toxic things that parents can do to children, or lovers can do to one another, or the workplace can do. If you and then a partner who was bullied and shamed, it just, you have, Brene Brown's correct. You have to understand shame, and you have to understand that you have to be kind to yourself when you're in a shame attack. And so it's like, I can remember making, we used to, St. Stephen's on Good Friday, we would spend from like 12 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, different lay leaders bringing something to whoever was there in the chapel, something about Good Friday. And I can remember the year that I got up and cried because I couldn't figure out what was good about that Friday, because I feel guilty that he died for me because thought I was such a horrible person. And it's like, what is good about this sacrifice? What is good? And I struggled with that. I'm a mother. I don't know that I would sacrifice a child for any one of anybody I know, but it's like, who is capable of that? And it took a while. It just took a while to be kind to myself. And I think giving ourselves grace is, and knowing that it's not going to be an easy or a quick journey. It's just not. I think it's like riding a bicycle. You know, you get on and you go so far, and then all of a sudden there's a bump in the road, and you're on your knees, and you're thinking, I thought I know how to do this, but I don't. You know, so I still work on that. I still work on, and the other thing is, Brother Lawrence, a monk in like I think the 1300s, wrote this. There's a book of what his lessons were, and it's in all things be prayerful. You can be connected to God when you are washing dishes. You can be connected to God when you're in the garden. You can be, it's like it's a choice. To the glory of God, I'm washing these dishes the best way I can, and I'm chanting, and I know I'm in the presence of holiness. And I had to come to, when I'm in that sad place or that, shame place, I can still say, God, I've been through this. I know you're here. The lesson I got from those prayers were I couldn't stop the crucifixion, but I never left him during the crucifixion. And that's comforted me. It's like, as gray and dark and stormy as it feels, the creator of the universe is right there with me. And that's a long, accepting that I'm lovable. It's still a journey. I'm still working on it.
Always has to be. And we're not alone. We're not alone
Right,
on that journey.
right.
And oh my gosh, thank you for sharing those beautiful insights and everything. And that's like you said, we need to be kind to ourselves and just think on our self-talk. Let's bring it back to our icebreaker thing. If you wouldn't talk to your friend and in that negative way, why'd you do that? Then you shouldn't talk to yourself that way either. So I invite you to do a little homework and think about what you said about what you might do for a friend in our icebreaker session, and just think about how you could do some of those things for yourself as well. But I think you brought that perfectly back to just that Sabbath idea of reconnecting with the sacred, of reconnecting with all those things that connect us to each other.
I'm sorry, I have a sign right by the door I go out, and it says, treat yourself like the way you would treat people you love.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly.
It's like I've served. I put people for, we all put people first, but it's like, but treat yourself. Talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Be present for yourself the way you would do for the people you love. Those notes or the memes or the calls. It's like, how many, I don't always do it. I have to remind myself still.
Yeah, none of us can do that perfectly, but this is a good reminder. Gregor?
Yeah, so one of the things I do for self-care is try to get enough rest as I get up at 4 a.m. So I have to disconnect from this call.
Okay.
I still have to get a shower.
You go take care of yourself, sir.
Okay. So I guess we can ask someone else to pray us out if you want. Pray us out, but let me say, before we pray us out, let me say next week we're just talking about pride, and just remember on your calendars, we have decided not to meet on July 4th. So just keep that kind of in mind, and hopefully I'll see you all next week.
All right.
Thank you for letting me participate.
Thank you for being here. Hope we'll see you again.
Holy
Bye.
God, we're just so grateful for this group, this God Talk. This really is God Talk because we're talking about things, all things spiritual. And we're just grateful for the safety and security and of this room, and what is said here stays here. And we're grateful that we can come here and be vulnerable and share and know that we're going to be treated with love and respect. And so we're going to pass the word about this, and maybe more of your people need to know that they're beloved, just like we are figuring out that we are beloved. So we ask that you bring those in, and that we grow this ministry. And as we go through the rest of this week, just with every breath that we can, every time we can think about it, and we can come to the awareness of our breath, and let us know that you are breathing us, that you are with us, that you do love us unconditionally. Help us to keep that at the forefront of all that we do. In Christ's holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Bye, everybody.
Oh,
Bye,
man.
Marlo.
Bye. Love y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Sweet dreams, Craig. Bye.
Mama,